Hey, thank you for not believing in me. Yes, Lord. Anybody listening right now, don't never let nobody opinion of you determine yourself.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another Let That Marinate podcast episode. Of course, it's your dude, Lorenzo. And it's Thursday, man. Feeling really good, man. Feeling blessed. Hope everybody's doing well. It's just a great day, man. It's just a beautiful day. It's hot, here in Chattanooga, but it's still a beautiful day nevertheless. And I'm thankful to be amongst the land of the living. So listen, man, I want to get into it. Still kind of late to the party, but it's still kind of a fresh topic. They're still showing clips, playing clips from this podcast. Damien Hall, I want to talk about real quick. Damien Hall from the legendary group Guy was on Holding Court podcast where he did an interview, and he said something in that interview that kind of sparked a conversation. I'm not going to say controversy because I don't think it's that big of a deal to call it that, but it did spark a conversation. So he said that there's no group better than Guy, period. So of course, making that bold of a statement, I had to kind of wait to see if he was going to bring context to it, bring some clarity, because I really want to understand why you would make that bold of a statement. So, he then goes on to say that anytime that, he talks about how they never opened up for any other group. He always talks about how even when they're not the headliners, no other group would want to follow it behind them. They would say, he said after the group was done performing, the audience started leaving. So that was his reason as to why there's no group better than Guy. And I thought he was going to bring a little bit more factual context, because my thing is, and I mean, it very well could be true. Yeah, they probably, performed great and the audience loved it, and, and I don't know, but but for me, I guess I'm thinking like, okay, well, who was on the show? What venue were y'all doing? Because when I think of other groups, and let's bring a little bit more context to it, because he was basically saying from the time that they started up until now. So he's referring to all the groups that came out around in that area, late 80s, early 90s. He's talking about that. He's talking about there's no other group that's better than them. Now, it's okay to feel that way, and it's okay to, have that type of confidence in yourself. Nothing wrong with that at all. However, I'm still, when I think of that era, I think of groups like Jodeci. I think of groups like Boyz II Men. I think of Shy, Belle Biv DeVoe, right? And if we want to stretch it out a little bit and throw in some female groups, I mean, you got SWV, you got In Vogue, you got TLC, you had Brownstone at that time. Also, you had the group Shy, right? And the thing is this, all of them had great songs, right? All of those groups had great songs. And Guy definitely had some great songs. They definitely put out some timeless classics, for sure. Legendary group, not taking anything away from Guy. But to say that no one's better, to say no other group was better than y'all, I kind of disagree with that, because I'm more of a fan of Jodeci than I am Guy, and I mean that respectfully. I'm more of a fan of, I was more of a fan of Boyz II Men than Guy. There was also another group that came out, Mint Condition, right? I was more of a fan of theirs, and and by the way, let me just make it known, Stokely, great musician, even greater artist. I actually had the pleasure of seeing him in concert live, and he definitely put on a show. His microphone is on, as the singers like to say. He was doing his thing. So, but yeah, man, it was kind of hard for me to agree with that statement that Damien Hall made. And again, I'm a fan of Guy. They put out some timeless classics, but for him to say that, I'm like, yeah, I think that's a bit of a stretch. And then also, let's remind you, okay? There's a group by the name of New Edition. In which to me is the greatest group ever. And there's a long list of groups that has been out. We can go back to the Temptation days, right? We can go back to the Four Tops. We can go back to, the Miracles, Smokey Robinson and the Miracles. We can go back there. We can also go back to, the Dramatics, the Jacksons even, Earth, Wind, and Fire. So many great groups have came out. But to me, I would have to say New Edition is the greatest group ever. Because they're still alive and well, still kicking, and still performing, even to this day. And I'm talking about they haven't missed a step. I actually had the pleasure of seeing them in concert. And you talking about a performance. And here's the crazy thing about New Edition. They could actually do a concert by themselves. By themselves, right? They don't need nobody else to be on the card to perform. Like, they can do it themselves. Now, of course, yeah, every act, has to have an opening act first, because you want to set the tone, you want to set the atmosphere, you want to get the audience ready. But if you think about it, New Edition can do a concert all by themselves, because you got to think about Ralph Tresvant when he went solo, went platinum. Johnny Gill went solo, platinum. Belle Biv DeVoe went platinum as a group. Bobby Brown, the legendary Bobby Brown, went solo, went platinum. He was even considered the king of R&B at the time, right? So those are 4 acts right there by themselves. Like, you could have, maybe one of them could have opened up. BBD could have opened up, followed up with Ralph Tresvant. Well, let me switch it up. Maybe Ralph Tresvant opens up. Then you got Johnny coming. Then you got Belle Biv DeVoe, and then you got Bobby Brown. Bobby Brown has to close. I'm sorry, Bobby Brown has to be the closer, because Bobby Brown was him. Bobby Brown was him, for sure. And that's not taking anything away from the other guys, because they all did their thing. But when you talk about a true performer, like, Bobby Brown was that guy. You know what I mean? And because he was such, because he had that bad boy edge, that's what made it even, that's what made him all the more popular, because, of course the ladies loved him. You know what I mean? And then he just had that, that edge to him, that, that cool edge that everybody, was just, was able to gravitate towards. Same thing with BBD. BBD had that edge as well. BBD came out with some monsters, man. They came out with some straight up classics. Like, you can't, like, when they stepped on the scene, as a trio, man, that Poison, wow. Soon as that beat hits, you ready to dance, you ready to vibe, you ready to just have some fun. You know what I mean? So to me, I feel like there's nobody better than New Edition. Now, let me take it here though, because of course, when you think of groups, when you think of R&B groups, of course you got to factor in the vocals, right? And to me, every group had that one who was just killing it. That's why they were always out front, because they were the ones with the vocals. Guy, Aaron Hall was the only one with the vocals, right? You got Teddy Riley in the background. You know, he's the producer. And then you got Damien in the background. Now, there was a story he told about how I think he was he was supposed to be the original singer for Let's Chill. He was supposed to be the lead singer. You know, they actually recorded it. They were finished with it, but for some reason they wanted Aaron to do it. They wanted Aaron Hall to do it. So not sure why. You know, when he said that there was a couple of pieces that I didn't hear about that, but yeah, he says that he was the original lead for Let's Chill, but Aaron got it, and maybe it was supposed to happen that way, because Aaron Hall he killed it. He killed. He did what Aaron Hall does. So nevertheless, it still became one of the best songs to ever be put out. So, but yeah, again, you have to factor in the vocals because not every group has singers. You just have some. You just have some that's just in the group. Because maybe they have that look, maybe they can dance, maybe they have that swag, maybe they just needed an extra member to make the group complete. Who knows? But when I think of R&B groups, I also think about the vocals. Jodeci had it, Boys to Men for sure, and let's go here real quick because I want to say 112. I think 112 came out in the 90s. The late 90s, mid 90s, something like that. Also, there was, the group Next that came out. There was who else? Jagged Edge. Jagged Edge came out. Blackstreet. You got Blackstreet as well. Shy. So when I think of these groups, I'm thinking vocals. I'm not thinking, dancing all over the place, flipping and all that other stuff. Although that does play a part in, being a great group. You have to be able to, dance and move, because, if you want to really put on a performance, if you really want to put on a show, yeah, you got to be able to do that. That's why New Edition is the greatest group because, they can get up there and, they can sing, they can dance, and the crowd loves it, so yeah, absolutely, you need that. But at the same time, there's just other things that you have to factor in order to be considered the greatest group. And I feel like New Edition embodied that. I feel like 112 embodied that, even though, again, they came out like in the mid 90s. I think 95, maybe, when they came out, 94, 95, something like that. Same with Jagged Edge. Jagged Edge was more vocals. They wasn't all, dancing and all that. Who else? Boys to Men. Boys to Men was just all vocals. They gave us, those ballads. They gave us those, those songs, man. You just, it was the harmony, it was the vocals, that just made you just become such a fan of Boys to Men. You know what I mean? So, also Drew Hill. Drew Hill's another group that, that's definitely up there, in terms of, being like vocally one of the best groups, vocally. And, again, you got to throw in the females. You got to throw in the female groups. Escape, SWV, 702, Brownstone, even Destiny's Child. You want to throw them in there as well. But there's just so many things that you have to factor in order for someone to be considered like one of the greats. You know what I mean? Even with solo artists, right? Because there's so many great solo artists out there as well that can give you everything. That can give you everything, right? Michael Jackson. That's why he's in a whole class by himself. right? Because he could give you everything, and it doesn't matter what genre it is. He can give it to you. However you want it, he can give it to you. Prince was the same way. You got Chris Brown that's doing his thing. You got Usher. You know, you just got so many elements, you know, that puts you at that level. You know, and there's quite a few that embodies that, you know. But getting back to Guy and what Damien Hall said, again, legendary group, absolutely. You know, timeless classics. You know, you see, like you still when you think of Guy, yeah, you think of Let's Chill. You know, you think of Groove Me. You think of You Could Have a Piece of My Love. You know what I mean? Like you think of these songs, and you know you're still playing these songs even to this day, right? And I'm always gonna be, you know, that old school, that I just love that nostalgia feeling. So anytime that I just want to listen to some music, I just go back, you know, to that time, to that era, because those were definitely some good times. And you know, I'm appreciative of them, you know, even coming out during that era, you know, giving us, you know, such great music, you know. So salute to everyone, you know, during that era, you know, that just gave us what we needed. You know what I mean? So yeah, man, I feel like, you know, yeah, there's nothing wrong with being confident in yourself and believing that yes, you are, you know, one of the greatest groups. But to say no one's better than you, I thought that was a stretch. Just my opinion, because again, when I think of groups from that era, I think of other groups, you know, that I became a fan of and still a fan of to this day, you know, and and I'm gonna just say it like this. So if Guy and Jodeci were in a concert on the same night but at different locations, I'm going to see Jodeci. That's just me. You know what I'm saying? If Guy and Mint Condition was in concert on the same night but at different locations, I'm going to go see Mint Condition. You know what I mean? So even if they were on the same venue, if Guy went first, I'm staying to see whoever is going to follow up. Like if Jodeci, you know, is going to follow them up, is, you know, the following act, I'm staying to see Jodeci. And then if you have a Mint Condition that's following them, I'm going to stay and listen to Mint Condition. Right? But that's just me. That's just me. But, you know, again, no disrespect to the legendary Damien Hall, no disrespect to the group Guy, because legendary group gave us some great classics, man. And, you know, yeah, they're definitely one of the, they're definitely one of the ones. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, but yeah, man, that's, you know, I was, you know, again, when he said that, you know, I was like, man, you stretching, you know, but hey, you know, that's just what it is, you know what I mean? So, anyway, that's my time, you know, for the day. I'm going to chill for a bit before I have to get ready to go to work, you know what I mean? But I just had to come on, do another Let That Marinate podcast episode. And once again, thank y'all so much for subscribing. Thank y'all so much for the support. Continue to support your boy. Continue to follow the links. Remember to hit my, go to the website, www.lorenzojamesjr.com. Click those links. Follow your boy, man. Let's stay connected. All right? Salute. Let that marinate.
Hey, thank you for not believing in me. Yes, Lord. Anybody listening right now, don't never let nobody opinion of you determine yourself.